On Sunday, Matt began a new sermon series at church and gave it the title, The Way to the Cross. Jesus was with his disciples and they were making their way towards Jerusalem when two of them, James and John, made a very strange request. They wanted a position of authority in Jesus' kingdom. A little further on in the conversation, Jesus made a very telling statement. He said this: "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Now, many things happened in the following days, but I want to take you to the room where the Passover meal was prepared. Jesus knew what would happen in the next few hours, but he wanted to spend time with his closest friends, and that was at a meal. The table was prepared, the food was ready, and the friends were gathered. Now, as far as we know, there were 13 people in the room. What a mixed bunch they were. There was Matthew. He was a tax collector, and as a tax collector, he worked for the Romans. Simon the Zealot, who hated the Romans, would have done anything to get rid of them. In fact, I just imagine what he might have done to a Roman down a dark back alley. There was Peter. He was always outspoken, very opinionated, often opened his mouth and put his foot in it. And there was Thomas, who was always uncertain, always questioning, doubting everything, the eternal pessimist. James and John, well, we know about their requests for priority in the kingdom. In fact, one of the gospel records concerning this conversation, in fact, involved mother. Mum wanted the best thing for her boys. In fact, all of the disciples, on one occasion, it describes how they were arguing amongst themselves as to who was the greatest. And then also sitting at the table was Judas. Judas was the treasurer of the group, and money had gone missing, and the finger of suspicion pointed in his direction. Certainly a dodgy character. And this group sat down for a meal. But not one of them noticed the obvious thing that had not happened prior to the meal. While they were waiting to tuck into the food, Jesus got up, went to the side, picked up a bowl of water and a towel, and started washing feet. Now, it's very different to what would happen when we have a meal. In that situation, it would have been normal practice, probably for the host, to provide a servant, a slave, to wash feet. People's feet were dusty from the road, and so a servant would do that. But nobody did it. So Jesus did. Imagine the embarrassed silence as Jesus went one to the other. And then he spoke. He said this, we read it in John chapter 13. "Since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you." Imagine, if you will, Matthew, wash Simon the Zealot's feet. Simon the Zealot, you wash Matthew's feet. Peter, wash Thomas's feet. Thomas, wash Big Mouth Peter's feet. Hey guys, all of you, wash James and John's feet. Who's going to wash Judas's feet? It can be the hardest thing to do an act of kindness and humility to those who are not my type, to those who I disagree with, to those I resent, to those who have hurt me deeply. Must I wash their feet? The Apostle Paul, describing the attitude of Jesus, wrote this in Philippians. "You must have the same attitude Christ Jesus had. He took the humble position of a slave or a servant. Jesus had said to the disciples in John 13, I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. And then, as we've already said, Jesus in Mark 10 said this, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. And I guess it begs the question of each of us, who should I serve today for Jesus' sake? May God bless you as we are challenged by his word and as we seek to serve him.